This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, it is 7:05, so I will open up the March 15th Southampton Planning Board meeting. We have a quorum. 3 of us are present. Paul Fergal could not make it tonight. He has to be excused. So we're here tonight to revisit a request from the Conservation Commission, which is represented tonight by Art Lawrence. Just to give you a little background, Cindy, the proposal was tabled at our last meeting for further information. Paul Fergal had some concerns about the swale and the culvert that was close to that area, and I believe Art has rectified that. I'm sorry Paul isn't here to weigh back in on it, but that is not the case. I did not hear anything, any negative comments from him because he received the drawing of sketch 2 that Art had sent us over a week ago. So without further ado, Art Lawrence, you can take it over about the curb cut for the Alice Brown Conservation Area.
All right, thanks, Paul. It's always nice to be here in the Ides of March. Hopefully that's not any indication of what we'll end up with tonight.
I think the Ides of March was yesterday, wasn't it?
No, it's the 15th.
No, it's today. It's the 15th. A2 Brute, continue.
Yeah. If I can just quickly share the screen, Paul, is that okay?
Yep, go ahead, sure.
And just primarily for Cindy's sake, because she wasn't here, let me pull this up, and hopefully everybody can see that.
Yep.
Cindy, primarily what we're doing, this is 70 Pleasant, the Alice Brown Conservation Area. We want to put a parking lot in there. It's a 2-car parking lot. And primarily the issue was with the curb cut permit. Randall Kemp had never approved a parking lot curb cut permit. And he asked the planning board to get approval for this project so he can issue this permit. I hate to admit it, but Paul Fergal brought up some good stuff that, to tell you the truth, I just wasn't even thinking straight. So, and Paul, as Paul mentioned, we've eliminated all the swale and culvert activity. We're not going to be anywhere near that. We will not touch that. All we're simply doing is putting in the crushed rock, compacted level with the road, and make this parking lot. We have the Kemp brothers all set to do the work as soon as weather permitting. Just let me quickly go down just to show you the area. I think everybody's pretty familiar with it, but this is the Alice Brown. It's kind of a weird piece of property. We got a very small entrance here on Pleasant Street, and then this opens up. We have forested this area. We have surveyed it, and we'll be adding, there is one trail in there. We'll be adding additional trails. Hopefully, again, as soon as the weather gets better. We have blazed the property. We have put medallions. So we're in pretty good shape there. Another picture here, another sort of a satellite picture, just showing where the parking lot would go. This is pointing towards Gun Road. So it's as you're going towards Gun Road, it's off to the right, and you can see the conservation area. Again, just another plot plan from our surveyors, Holberg and Howe. And then this is just a quick little sketch from the Kent boys, a 15 by 55 foot 2-car parking lot. And the pitch will be towards the conservation area. If this becomes a problem as far as water and so on and so forth, we would obviously come back with a conservation worthy design and permit it either an RDA or an NOI as needed. I don't think we're going to have an issue, but you never know. And then finally, a couple photos just showing the area. Actually, it's a little further back, the start of the parking lot. But that's one photo, again, pointing towards Gun Road, going down that street. And then the last photo here is just showing the entrance of the conservation area, this area in where I'm showing. That is a forestry road, logging road, which we will eventually, grow over with brush and so on and so forth. And then you can actually see one of the trails up here that's being used literally almost every day. So that's pretty much it. Like I say, we're asking for approval for the from you folks, so we can get this curb cut and get this project going. That's all I have, Paul. Thank you.
So, all right, the main, in Paul Fergal's absence, the main question he had was before you, on the previous plan, you were going to install a swale or something?
No, the original one, Paul, Randall had thought, and he and Mike Kent and myself were out there. He and Mike talked about, modifying the swale, which is up in front here, that goes into, it sort of feeds into the culvert, which goes underneath the road. And I don't know the history of the culvert. It's been obviously there a long, long time. Just to shed more water off the road. And me like a jerk, not really realizing all the ramifications of that, which Paul brought up, and rightfully so. So we're not going to touch anything in that area. Like I say, in the future, if this area, if this parking lot gets full of water for some reason, we may want to do something there. But we will have a full design. So we're 25, 30 feet away, maybe 40 feet away from the swale and from the culvert. So the swale just right currently, and it's been this way since as long as I've been out there, a good 10 years, just takes some of the water off of the road because there's a slight hill up here, and it comes down, goes down the swale, goes and goes into the culvert.
Any other questions, Dan or Cindy?
I have no questions.
I have some questions. Not sure if I understand this correctly, but you're looking for a curb cut permit, correct?
From Randall, yes.
Randall is, yeah. Okay. So does that mean there's going to be a curb?
No, it's just the standard. We're not touching, we're not, it's going to be level. The compacted rock will be level with the road.
Okay. So 2 cars, that's cool. And I know this is one of the least recognized conservation areas for our town. It's a really lovely area. I've walked there several times. What if there's more than 2 cars? Will they still be doing what they do now, which is pull off?
I guess so, yeah. We felt that's basically the limit of what we can get in there because it is a kind of a narrow opening. We're going to have we've already purchased signs. Our typical conservation area sign is going to be going up there, right where the logging road is in that area. And
okay.
Yeah, that could be a problem, but it's the same on just about a lot of our properties. East Street being another one. Where do people park there?
Right, right. I'm well aware of that. I know Clearwater has pretty nice area, and somebody brought up to me the other day that they were trying to go snowshoeing up at Wolf Hill,
Yeah,
and that was cool, except it wasn't plowed. And the
yeah.
question was, who plows it? And I think Randall does it when he can, kind of thing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Or
I think so, Cindy. That's a good point. I can ask him, but yeah, that'd be definitely a great site for snowshoeing. That's for
yeah.
sure.
Well, maybe in 10 years there won't be any more snow because, climate change and all that stuff, but we're still hopeful. It'll come in March and April next year, of course. So I don't have any questions about the parking lot because I think it's reasonable to have this. It is kind of a curve there. So if somebody pulls in kind of, and I assume that's what you're talking about, you're going to take a 90-degree right turn to get into the parking lot, correct? Is that
Yeah.
the way you've designed it?
Well, it's not 90. I'd say it's more 45
Okay.
because it sort of flares in. So let me show you. Sort of tell you what I'm talking. You can see how it's flared in this way.
I see. Okay.
So
But that means the car's going to back out, right? And
may have to if there's two cars there. Yeah.
yeah, and therefore, am I right? There's a bit of a curve that comes around Pleasant Street right there. They're just going to have to be careful, make sure cars not coming screaming in at 45 or 50 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
We have similar stuff even on the rail trail, which of course we don't own, but it is happening to be on Coleman. There's a parking area there that's similar, and that's probably as busy, if not busier, than Pleasant. But yeah, you bring up a good point.
Yeah, I go there all the time, and I know what you mean. Yeah, and that's a very busy road. So I don't have any more questions regarding the parking lot. I do have a couple of questions about Alice Brown, the whole property, though. I was there a couple of years ago, and there were some super big trees down. I haven't been there in a couple of years. Have those all been cut? They were obscured.
Yeah, we have the logger actually in the fall. We had a forester come in to mark the trees, and then the logger came in and did his work. So I haven't been up since then, but I think it's they generally this forester always does a good job.
Is that Blue Dog, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the guy from Hampton, yes.
Yeah. I know who he is. Tom, right? Tom?
Tom, yeah. And we've used him exclusively on at least two properties now, and we're looking at the property on Route 10 is the next one that to thin it out. We don't want it to end up like East Street. We never did any work there in East Street, and if you've been into, I mean, we've got a new trail system in there, and it's beautiful and this and that, but there are trees down everywhere, and I think if that had been managed a little better, it would, it would be a lot nicer. Now we just leave it because the critters use it and so on and so forth, but it's too late. So we try to manage every 10 years, just theoretically. I know there's a lot of controversy about it and this and that, but a well-managed forest still makes sense as far as I'm concerned.
Good. I don't have any more questions, Paul, about the parking lot.
Okay. Randall's request to come here, just to reiterate, was because it was town property. He's authorized to give curb cuts for residential and businesses, but he had never been approached about approving a curb cut for town property. So he just wanted another board's, and this was a likely board, to give their approval of it before he signed off on it. So With that, I'll entertain a motion to endorse the Conservation Commission's request for a curb cut for the Alice Brown Conservation Area on Pleasant Street.
Without repeating the whole thing, I move to endorse as described.
Second.
Motion's been made by Cindy and seconded by Dan. Any other further discussion? If not, all those in favor, Dan,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and I approve as well. So 3-0. So I'll send Randall a memo on this, Art,
Okay,
and to confirm this, and good luck with that and all your other endeavors with conservation.
thank you so much, and you guys have a good evening. Thank you.
Art, could you
Yeah.
stay for a minute? Could you
Yeah.
just stay? Because I'm going to be asked to give a report on the other committees that I'm a part of as appointed by the planning board. So just want you to hear, because I'm going to come to Concom on Monday. Can you just hold in
Yeah.
there?
All right. All right, and given that, then I will take the rest of the agenda out of order because there's no one waiting to be heard here. So Cindy, I'll ask you to give you a report this time.
Okay, super. All right. So as an appointee from the planning board, I'm on the open space committee, and we've been working on a pretty large conservation project in partnership with Kestrel Land Trust. It's called the Mountain Waters Project. And for one thing, we're on the agenda for Monday's Conservation Commission, we being Kestrel Land Trust and myself representing Open Space Committee. But it's really moving along. The goal is, in order to acquire the property, certain partners, Hoyok Waterworks, Mass Audubon, Mass Wildlife, and also hopefully other Massachusetts monies, specifically in the form of a Mass Landscape Partnership grant, are going to be utilized. Yes, there'll be some match by our town. It can't be a 50% match, obviously, but some level of match will be required by the town. We are hoping to inform and get endorsement from the Conservation Commission for this project, but it's primarily land in the greater Ty-Carmody Reservoir area, upper northwest area of our town, and self-explained Mountain Waters Project. So we had a gathering at Glendale Ridge Winery on the 13th of February, which was really well attended. It was paid for and financially supported by another grant called a Neighborhood Outreach Grant. And we invited 18, no, we invited more than that. Yeah, I guess we invited 18 property owners, and not everyone could attend. Some expressed interest but couldn't attend. Others didn't respond. And there was a really nice turnout, including some family members, etc. Kestrel Land Trust had 3 speakers. I think somebody from Conservation Commission had hoped to come, but she had a last minute change in her work responsibilities. And a couple people from Open Space Committee were there. It was a very positive meeting. And as far as I know, we're on target for the application for the Landscape Partnership Grant, which is due April 15th. And the minimum number of acres required that would be committed minimum, it's 250, which isn't really a very large number of acreage. We're going to have closer to 700 acres. And partners have already signed on. So I'm just giving really good news about this, that this is land that is at risk for, in some cases, for development, but it's certainly important in terms of conservation of property that's primarily forested property and is part of a corridor that goes all the way up the northeast part of the United States into Canada. And so it's well beyond goals of this town of Southampton, but we have really valuable property. So anyway, Art, you'll see me on Monday, okay?
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go eat, if you don't mind, and have a good evening. Thank you much.
Enjoy. Bon appetit.
Thank you, Paul.
Do you want to continue with any other committee reports, Cindy, while you're on it?
Sure. Also, I'm on the Master Plan Implementation Committee. We met one time in 2022, and that was really kind of figure out the status of where we are. And not since. That was, I think, February of 2022. I do think the chairperson, who's Chris Fowles, is trying to coordinate another meeting just to find out where we're going. I'm also on CPC, and 3 different projects were proposed for this coming warrant for the annual town meeting in May. One of them is a rather modest amount of money that will help go for phase 2 of the improvements at Manhattan Meadows Sanctuary, which includes a bridge across, the bridge that was there had to be removed. Another one is, I think, $60,000 that would go towards the design and the engineering for the Greenway. The actual building of the Greenway, now that the town has acquired the property, the actual building of the Greenway will take multiple millions of dollars, and we're targeted for getting that kind of money, I think, in 2025. But things have definitely moved along for the Greenway. The third project is it's a project that was put forth by our Keith Locke's wife, who is also an engineer, Juliet, and it had to do with the very, very sad circumstance of a young child who passed away last year of a very aggressive brain tumor, very sad. And in honor of that, they're eager to see a building of a playground over on Labrie Field. Now, some of the projects of Labrie Field that were approved under CPC a few years ago, some have been completed, some have not. But this was only a playground was only considered an option. So the proposal has come from Parks, but it is to build a very beautiful, accessible playground over at Labrie Field. That was all 3 of these projects were approved by CPC and will go on the town warrant in May. So that's pretty exciting because they're really important. And you may know that our dear Virginia Ahart is not running again for CPC. That's I'm sure she'll be a supporter of what's going forward, but it's a bit of a loss to our town for not having her in a chair role because she's so knowledgeable. I guess that's all I have to report on committees.
Thank you, Cindy. Welcome, Joy.
Oh, sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. Didn't miss anything important. Next on the agenda, I've got 3 building permits, and I signed off on all 3 due to the nature of them that the board gave the chair years ago. They all are well under 40,000 square feet of disturbance. And just for the record, Dan, first one is Tim Haggerty, Haggarty, 107 County Road. Second one was Richard Dada, D-A-H.
Yeah, I copied all this from the Mantown government site, so I got all the names and everything.
301 Fulmer Road. And the other one was Todd Alexander for 6 Bloomer Road. So I would ask the board to just make a motion to accept those building permits.
Cindy, I think you muted.
Yep, I was muted. I moved to accept the 3 building permits that Paul signed off on based on his authorization from our board.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other further discussion? If not, all in favor? Dan,
I
Cindy,
Aye.
myself, aye, 300. That's pretty much business. Just the other item I have to, very important reminder that on April 5th is a very important meeting for all of us to put on our calendars. It's a introduction of a preliminary subdivision plan for Parsons Village on College Highway, which is across from the Cumberland Farms store area. 55 and over community that they're proposing. So all town departments have been notified, and I asked them to respond back by the latest 2 days before the meeting. Richard Harris, our consultant, has the plans, and that meeting will be in town hall in person. The Zoom meetings, that comes to a close on March 31st, according to Town Administrator Ed Gibson. They haven't heard anything about extending that at this point. But in any event, we probably, with something of this magnitude, would meet in person anyway, as we will the definitive plan when that comes back down the road. So April 5th, 7 o'clock at Town Hall in the first floor meeting room. The next one I want you to put on your, excuse me, go ahead.
I have a question. Is that a planning board meeting or is that a ZBA meeting?
No, it's planning board.
Okay, and it's not a public hearing, it's a meeting.
No, it's a meeting.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And I don't know, have you had any subdivisions in your time on the board?
You're talking to me?
Yeah, you've been a part of Gill and Gill
Yeah,
Farms
Gill and Fitch Farms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this is a lot bigger and broader, but the scope of it is huge. And that's why you want them to do their homework and hear what the neighbors or the abutters and whoever else has an interest, to take that back before they come back with their definitive plan, in case they need to make several corrections. Next, which is a very important meeting for the planning board, is the bylaws hearing for all the edits that we have done since 2018. That is going to be April 19th. Now, the warrant for this is going to be submitted because I was in conversation with Richard Harris. I had a meeting with the select board a week ago, and there was a question because the warrant information has to be due April 6th. All warrant requests. However, Richard said you can submit the warrant without having a public hearing. Have the public hearing in between the time that you submit the warrant, the time of town meeting. So that's what we're going to do. I've already submitted the warrant article. He's tweaked the language. I'll resend that to Ed Gibson. But we will have the public hearing on it April 19th. And Richard is wording it to read to repeal and replace the existing bylaw. Now, there's been several changes that we made. I don't think there's been major ones. I think probably the most major was maybe the most recent with the multifamily and the accessory apartments. But I mean, all the other ones we did was tweaking some language, and I can't recall anything that really was major in a lot of the chapters we did. So that will all be available hopefully in E-code form, because she had a deadline, Deb Czynski, of, I think it was this week sometime. if not, it was Monday, for all the edits to be done. So whether it's general bylaws or zoning bylaws, it'll all be, the draft will be completed. And then we will use that copy to post on the town website so people can review it prior to the hearing. I've also asked Richard, because it might be helpful for most people that have questions that say, well, what did you change in this chapter? As you recall, when we went along on some of the drafts, there was, paragraphs that were highlighted that showed, the changes we made or whatever. So I've asked him to look back through that. And if we could have each one of those chapters on hand or available, perhaps those could be on the website too, so people could see what was changed in some of those sections. So we've got a busy couple of months coming up. The subdivision, which, is going to be, that's one of the biggest in my time on the board, in terms of number of units that's proposed. So that, and of course the bylaws, I can't wait for some of that to get approved, and hopefully there won't be a lot of controversy at town meeting, but you never know. Put a lot of work into it, but we've got to get into the 21st century with some of this stuff. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Can I raise something here?
Go.
Which I sent to you in an email. It's a dilemma for me, you guys. I'm not planning to rerun for the planning board. On the other hand, I feel strongly that if there were a couple people like Sarah Stein and Dan LaValle and Paul Fergal and Keith Locke, who are so super, to kind of jump in and be on the board, I would feel wonderful. But the last I've heard, nobody's pulled papers for the planning board. And the main reason that I'm not doing this is a personal conflict that's been with us the entire 5 years I've been on the board. And I just I've made a decision that I just didn't want to continue. I am appointed by the planning board to the open space committee, to the master plan implementation committee, and also to the CPC. So therefore I lose those appointments when I don't run. What I am planning to do is run, and I'm saying planning, I've already pulled papers and got all the signatures to run for assessors. That means a big time learning curve for me, but they don't meet the third Wednesday of the month, which is my conflict. That's it right there in a nutshell.
Yeah, but you also wear several other hats too.
I'm on Public Safety Building Committee, and I'm almoners. Yeah, you're right. Too many hats for an old retiree. But I don't know what else to do. You've made the point, Paul. It's a big point that there's a lot coming on going forward. And if it's just Dan and Paul and you, which is great, you guys can handle it. And you have one person not show up, you won't have a quorum. And that's a pain. And we talked a long time ago about an associate. And I don't know if that can be activated that quickly or what, but I'm just throwing this out as what I don't know what else to do at this point. I would stay on the board except for this one personal conflict for me. And I know you've been really great about saying, sure, Cindy, you don't need to come because, there's nothing happening and stuff. And that's cool. But it isn't the way I function. I usually tend to be kind of committed to what I'm committed to. Anybody know of somebody who's going to be running? Does anybody, we need good people. Do you think Keith would come back? Do you think Juliet would join? We've got some great engineers in town. We do. They're on the ad hoc senior center committee.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more given the number of people that live close by to the engineering firms in Westfield, just down the road, that live in town. As for the associate, the main focus of an associate, from my understanding over the years, not only here but in Northampton, is that it's like a fill-in when you don't have a quorum. So at this point, with you leaving in May and 2 people down, we really need a permanent position. In fact, 2. So an associate in that regard really wouldn't be helpful. You have a full board, and associate helps when you need to call somebody in an emergency. But I think I expressed to you, Cindy, that some people may feel like it's a lot of time. Now, with the exception of this subdivision coming up, we haven't had a lot of business in the last two years, especially since COVID. I mean, building permits were way down, but I mean, it's not like you have a subdivision come down the road every other month or twice a year. They're very rare. And the amount of business we conduct, usually for probably 95% of the time, is done within an hour. And it's only twice a month. However, how many times have I canceled because of a lack of agenda items or business? Several times. So I think this past in fiscal year, we didn't meet 24 times a year. I don't think we met 15 times. So, it's not terribly time consuming. If you think you're going to a meeting that's going to last 2 or 3 hours, well, that's select board. That's not Joy. Joy can tell you how many marathon meetings she's been to. Doesn't apply to a lot of other committees, particularly this one. So if anybody's out there that may want to reconsider because they think it's going to be a big time commitment, please do, because it really isn't. Joy?
Yes.
Would you have anything to add?
Not at this time specifically. There was a lot of discussion. As you know, there was a house fire last week. Members of the public came to the select board expressing their concerns. We're hoping to have the fire department and the highway department discuss, but there was also questions in regards to planning board and how to make that area more accessible for in the future for if there's, because I understand there might be developments down there and more houses built in that area and it's not accessible. My understanding is the driveway was very far away from the road. So things like that to bring forward to planning board. I don't have like any specifics, but just to keep in the back of our minds going forward with the planning board and different areas in town and their access to emergency services.
And you're referring to the Maple Street home?
Yes.
I was told many years ago, and it's very important to remember, maybe Cindy does and Dan, but Larry Smith, when he was our consultant years ago, planted a very good seed with us because we get A&Rs, and I'll use a parcel similar to Maple Street as an example. Larry Smith said, you shouldn't rubber stamp everything that comes through as a building lot, because you have to keep in mind emergency access, especially, and how far out they are from main roads and services and water and whatever else. You make a good point. And that has resonated with me, and we haven't had anything come up in recent times on a really remote area town, but it's a good point, and we should remember that going forward, because sometimes, I mean, you can approve a lot, but then on an A&R, you don't necessarily, you can see, you can approve the lot as being buildable, but what you can't see is how far back initially someone is going to build a house until they pull a building permit. So it's kind of a fine line there sometimes, because I can, in very rare circumstances, have I ever seen an A&R where we had to approve where there was actually a footprint of a building on it. It's just somebody carved out a lot and said, we want to buy this and build a house. So, but you have no idea on the property where they're building it. But yes, if we can be a little bit more diligent in the future and probably pull some more information out on an A&R plan like that in some of these areas, it would be for the public good and safety wise too. I have nothing else unless someone else needs questions answered or whatever else.
I move to adjourn.
Just a minute, Joy, I understand that, who was it, Cindy, or did you mention before, or was mentioned that the money was approved for?
I did. I did.
Okay.
I just said you're going to get a letter.
Okay, all right. Yeah. And Joy, I copied you on that invoice from ECO, just explaining what the additional work was for. Were you satisfied with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So for all intents and purposes, please keep those dates I gave you, the 5th of April and the 19th of April on your chart, because we will need a quorum. And I'll make sure that Paul is on board with this so we don't interrupt the process for these people going forward. So you want to entertain that motion again, Cindy?
I'm entertaining a motion again. Let's adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Well,
Thank you.
have a good couple of weeks till we see you again. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.